Live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the season of the Scarfy Spurs Talk podcast. As you notice, I am not Harry, and I'm making my debut hosting a podcast like a lot of Spurs players did against Brentford at the weekend. But as per usual, I'm joined by some brilliant guests. We'll go around the circle first. Brian, welcome onto the podcast. How are you, mate?
I'm very good, Jay, brother. How are you?
Yes, not too bad. It's actually a positive Spurs game to talk about, kind of. Obviously, the result's not what we wanted, but I think it was exciting for everyone. Ben, how are you doing? Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, good, thanks. Thank you for having me on, Harry, as always. And I hope everyone in the chat and everyone in the studio as well.
Yeah. And Travis, we're imagining you're on a beach somewhere and you're not showing us your camera because you don't want us to be jealous. But welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Hello, how are we doing? Yeah, I'm a regular on the show. Have been for a couple of weeks now. It's good to see some new faces on here. Brian, I think I've seen you before. Always got some very, very good points about Mr. Levy. Also, I just want a big shout out to Harry. Obviously, unfortunately, can't take part in the show tonight. He's a huge asset to what he does with his podcast. I think it's absolutely huge what he does, talking about autism, mental health, and obviously the Tottenham side of things. So, yeah, love you, Harry.
Very much agree with that sentiment. Brian, as we've mentioned Levy early on, we are going to talk about not the number 10 that played excellently for us on Sunday, but the number 10 that left the club to go to Germany to win a guaranteed trophy, which he didn't win. So how do you think the whole handling of the situation went? And, 2 days before the season starting, us knowing finally what the fate of Harry Kane was going to be and the impact it would have on the squad?
Oh, mate, it's a tough one, JJ. Let's put it this way: it was the biggest not secret in world football, wasn't it? It was written in the stars that this was going to happen. Spurs fans didn't believe it was going to happen, but could, in their heart of hearts or worst of nightmares, have come true. And once again, it's the timing of the club doing it again, isn't it? 2 days before the start of the season, we've done this with Berbatov, we've done this with Bale, we've done this with other players. When I saw they'd been accepted, I was like, okay, it's done. Okay, get it over. But obviously, when you saw the Harry Kane reveal, which we never thought we'd see, we thought we'd always see him in the same shirt. Then saw the here we go, and then you saw all the videos and media coming out of Bayern and then seeing him in a different kit. It was just horrific. It's horrific. And this guy, whether people think he's turned his back on us or not, this guy has given us incredible service for 10 years, been at the club longer, done everything that has been asked of him, hasn't had the support that he's needed. And he said with his own words, match my ambition, I stay. We didn't show his ambition or match his ambition, and he's gone. But you know what? It's done, and we move on now. We move on. But the timing, JJ, was just the worst thing for me.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, Ben, as well. If this is, as Ange said, they kind of knew what the situation was going to be like from the minute Ange took over. The first conversation he had with Kane, Ange kind of alluded to that he knew that this was the way it was going to go. It wasn't confirmed. Do you think it being kept hush-hush benefited the club, or do you think it would have been better to be more open? Obviously with transfer negotiations, if it's guaranteed that Kane's going to go, clubs are going to ramp up their transfer prices.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, really, isn't it? Obviously, with such a high-profile case, it's going to be difficult to keep it more in-house. Obviously, that probably would have been more beneficial, and it would have been less sort of a stressful environment in terms of the media pressure on it. It was like Sky have been selling the transfer for years, and it's finally happened. But I think ultimately it wasn't really much in our control, and it's obviously Bayern Munich's executives were very public about it, which I don't think Spurs would have been that happy with, understandably. But I think ultimately getting the money in the end is a good thing for us in the long term. If you take the emotion out of it, which obviously we're going to have because we're Spurs fans. Harry Kane has played for Spurs most of the time I've supported Spurs with my age. It's very obviously emotionally attached. But from a business perspective, you can understand maybe with Champions League, we're not guaranteed we're going to get top 4, top 5 in terms of people saying the prize money could be worth keeping Kane with the amount of competition in the Premier League there is nowadays. So I think ultimately it was the right thing, but I don't think it was handled that well from either party, if I'm honest.
Travis, how much do you think the way that Bayern Munich behaved affected the transfer? Do you think if they were a bit more professional, we maybe would have seen a deal done sooner, or do you think it was, kind of Levy being stubborn now that Bayern Munich really tried to embarrass us in front of everyone?
Yeah, I mean, obviously trying to deal with Daniel Levy, I think they've tried putting his pants down a little bit. Obviously, being the type of businessman he is. I don't like the way I kind of mirror with what Brian said. I don't like the way both clubs went about their business. Really, obviously, it being Harry Kane. The only positive thing I can say is Harry Kane. He's such a professional. He's not like the Ronaldos, the bigger names who throw their toys out the pram when they don't get what they want. I think Harry Kane has said to Ange since day one, look, I want to leave. Kane's wants to play at the highest level. He has done for a long, long time now. Obviously, being the loyal Tottenham fan, football player he is, he stayed for a long time, probably longer than what he should have done. But it's always been down to who do we replace Harry Kane with. Let's be realistic. The guy is irreplaceable. But yeah, I think Bayern went very wrong with the way they dealt things, and I'm not a fan of what's his name, the Bayern manager,
Thomas Tuchel.
Thomas Tuchel. Yeah, I'm really not a fan of him at all. But yeah, I wish Harry all the best. He probably will go and smash records out in Germany now, and get ridiculously amount of goals like he did in the Premier League. But yeah, I wish him all the best. It's just we did leave it till last minute, and I know we've got Richarlison, but he's injury prone. So I've said before we even sold him, we need someone in concrete with who can play in his position, and I don't think there's ever going to be a replacement out there for him, no matter who we get, really.
No, and I think that's the thing. I see a lot of people obviously say, oh, you're going to take 30 goals out of a season, Spurs would be finishing 18th. But everyone knows that practically that's not how football works. Someone's going to replace and find those goals. But that's it, done. No more Harry Kane talk for the rest of the podcast. He's gone. Bayern Munich player. We're looking ahead to the new season. Now, Ben, how excited were you when you saw Ange's first Premier League starting 11? And who are your standouts in that 11?
Massively excited. And to see all those debuts as well, I thought that was brilliant to see. I'll be honest, I was quite surprised how many debuts he made, particularly Brentford being... Obviously, there's no easy game in the Premier League, but with Brentford being a particularly difficult one, I think they only lost 2 games at home last season. So I was surprised, if I'm honest, but I thought all of them did themselves proud. Maddison was brilliant. Obviously, he's more Premier League proven than the other ones, so it's not so much of a jump for him. But Udogie, I thought, was brilliant for his first game in the league. Such a young kid as well. Van de Ven was brilliant as well. And obviously, we all know Basuma, how amazing he was. I mean, I say he was my man of the match, personally. It just felt like the ball stuck to his feet all game, and they just couldn't get it off him. I mean, and Emerson Royale, he had some good moments as well. I don't think he was as amazing as everyone said he was, but he did still have some good moments. And I think this current role is better for him just because he's not having to cross the ball basically as much as he was.
Travis, how much of a bold statement was it to play Mickey van der Ven straight away in the first Premier League match? And does that kind of show that obviously we've had our eyes on him for a while? Does that mean that Ange knew that he'd fit straight in the system fine and he wouldn't have trouble acclimatizing, or is it just because we couldn't deal with having Ben Davies playing left centre back to start the season?
The guys had probably 2, 3, maybe 4 training sessions, and I generally thought he had such a mature first game of the season. I don't think he actually put a foot wrong. I mean, he's lightning. He's so quick. I mean, before he joined Tottenham and come from Wolfsburg, you could see on his YouTube videos how quick this guy is. And he's like a modern day Jan Vertonghen. I think he's such a mature defender and got such a good head on his shoulders. Obviously, it's a risk. Obviously, playing new players in a completely different league, because obviously apart from Solomon, Maddison, the other players we bought have obviously come from different leagues. But I generally thought he was absolutely outstanding. I was looking at his stats earlier, and for his first game, it was quite something else, to be fair. So I think he's going to be well worth the money that we paid for him, and I think he's going to be quite an exciting player to watch. I also think he's very much like Ian Vertonghen and a Kyle Walker, So I think he's going to be one of the best players this season. I think why Romero went off. Obviously, I know he had a bit of a concussion, but the guy's made a steal. He could have carried on for another 60, 70 minutes. But yeah, massive respect for Mickey van der Ven. Absolutely superb.
And for you, Brian, probably the most exciting player that we were all looking forward to see in the starting 11 was a number 10 in the form of James Maddison. Spurs fans have been crying out for a creative midfielder. We finally got one. How excited were you when he came out in that Spurs shirt for the first time?
Oh, you can see it, in the Shakhtar game, the assist he put on for the person we're not talking about anymore. you could see that we've all seen from close quarters. I mean, he's destroyed us on a couple of occasions himself when he was at Leicester. Now, the best thing about it was actually seeing a number 10 step up and take a free kick and knowing it may go where it needs to go. That free kick, the power and speed of it was enough to give Romero a second concussion. It was like a bullet, but he was incredible. 2 assists on your debut, dictating the play. You could see what he was trying to do. One of the things I did admire from him is when he got that first yellow card, he started making a couple of rash chat, and I was like, "Oh, James, calm down." But then as soon as he got the captain's armband, he was like, "Right, it's me. I'm the responsible one." It's very, very exciting. If we can get the forward line to wake up compared to what they will and be a bit more active, James Maddison is going to wreak havoc in a Spurs shirt. He is a sensational footballer, and we got to see it yesterday.
Agreed. And I think it's just that it kind of numbed the blow a little bit to lose the man who shall not be named, an England number 10, to bring in another number 10 who's as creative. Okay, he's not going to provide us with most goals, but like you said, he's not going to step up to a free kick and it's going into the wall. So that's quite a nice feeling.
Yeah.
Travis, obviously Maddison can thread all the balls through he likes and do all these amazing things, but he has got Richarlison in front of him now. Kind of in the game and before the game, how did you feel seeing Richarlison lead that line? And, he's got massive shoes to fill, even though it's a totally different shirt number.
I mean, I've always been on the fence a bit with Richarlison, but I think the guy just needs time. I think he's got the right support there, obviously being James Maddison. I don't think you can really get much better than that with what we've bought. But I think Richarlison just needs to get two, three, 4, maybe goals under his foot, and I think he'll start being the player we all expect him to be. I mean, he scores goals for fun for Brazil. He's scoring goals for fun for Everton. So I think obviously there is a lot of competition there. Obviously being in the guy we shall not name's place, but yeah, I'll just give the guy time. I think he's a sensational footballer. He gets stuck in, and yeah, he's seen the way Harry Kane's played for a good amount of time now. So hopefully, give him a while, and I think he'll start scoring some goals.
Ben, kind of going off what Travis said about Richarlison, and he needs a bit of confidence. He just needs a couple of goals. In my personal opinion, watching the game, I thought the ball bounced off him quite a lot. It seemed like he was a guy that really needed to take his time. Do you think that's he knows the expectations that Spurs fans have maybe got of him, and he's probably putting a lot of pressure on himself to perform?
Yeah, maybe. And I think also it doesn't help last season that he only got that one goal, and the amount of goals he's had offside, I'm sure will have knocked his confidence quite a bit. I mean, it was ridiculous how many were offside in the end. I do think he is definitely a player that if he gets confidence, he could score quite a few goals. Do I think he's the number 9 we need replacement for the man we won't say? I'll be honest, I'm a bit on the fence. I think he's a great player off the bench for a team like us because I think the energy he brings would be brilliant, and he can chip in with a few goals, and he's a player that can produce moments of brilliance. But I'll be honest, I'm not sure he's consistent enough for that. And if I'm brutally honest, I think we need to sign another number 9 or move Sonny there. But Sonny's not going to work as a number 9 in certain games like Brentford when they're very physical opponents. We all know Sonny's not that kind of player, and Brentford particularly, who sat so deep that they just flooded the box, and Sonny's strengths is obviously running in behind where that wasn't really going to happen. So I think Richarlison was more suited to the 9 role in this game, but equally I'm still not sure he's of the required quality, but I'd love to be proven wrong.
Agreed. Brian, obviously we as Spurs fans gave Arsenal fans quite a bit of stick at the World Cup that obviously Richarlison was Brazil's number 9 over Gabriel Jesus.
Yep.
What do you think, is missing from playing from Brazil and being that number 9 that set the World Cup alight initially for Brazil and putting that Spurs shirt on and taking the ownership of being that lead striker?
Excuse me, what I actually think as well, which is really hampering him, is I said it on We Are Tottenham TV yesterday. I actually think that Kulu and Son are the wrong people to be playing wide of him because they're both introverted wingers that like to come in and take a shot and do everything like that. Don't get me wrong, they're both exceptionally good players, but Richarlison's like a target man. Get it into the box to him and sort it. And I reckon if we had someone like a Perisic, like a Chris Waddle, who used to get down to the byline, whip it in, and a Porro on the other side, I think he would get more joy. Don't get me wrong, Richarlison has not delivered on what we thought he would do or what he's been brought in to do. I think the style of Ange Ball is going to suit him more, but I think he needs the right players around him. And I've got this sick feeling that Son and Kulu, as good as they are and as effective as they can be, them cutting in, taking shots isn't what Richarlison needs. When you look at, he's got Neymar and whatever on the Vinicius Junior on the other side. Don't get me wrong, they're not on that level, Son and Kulu at the moment, but they get the balls into him. They go out wide. They do, and I think that's where we're missing something. We're not using Richarlison's strengths. We've got these players that are playing wide, and their strengths are coming in and doing what they do, but it's not what our forward needs. It's like, remember when we bought Soldado? Soldado, when he came in, he did brilliantly at Spain. He scored 20 goals plus 5 years in a row, but he played with another striker. So and then we bring him in and go, right, what you're going to do now is play up by yourself and create space for the oncoming midfielders. And I think, my personal opinion, that we'll get more out of Perisic and Porro or Solomon from Richarlison than we will Son and Kulu.
I think that was the thing as well. I remember watching the game and Kulu and Son, for me, it was like it's so predictable. They're going to get the ball out on the wing. They're going to cut inside. They're going to try and bend one top corner. And you could see the defenders were just showing them inside, but there were 2 defenders in the way. You're not getting your shot off. And I think that's why Udogie and Emerson had such a good game, because they were able to go around the outsides. And like you said, Brian, a direct ball into the box where Richarlison can dive in on it, get a little toe or something will suit his game so much more. I am going to stay with you, Brian, because we're talking about Son. And obviously captain for the day and for the rest of the season, obviously a massive step up for him, and giving away a penalty in your first game probably isn't the ideal start that he thought. What were your takes on the penalty and kind of just Son in general? Son
did not have the best of games, but one thing we've got to take from this as well is Ange has got, if he's not scared to take his captain off, then that bodes well for us going forward. Not so you. Oh, I don't know what happened there. We've done the can. I've come to the
Son's
bottom.
Watching the podcast.
Probably makes a change from leaving mucking it up when I'm doing something. So okay, I apologise, Son. But yeah, that bode well. But there's a few things I don't know since this injury, if he's lost a yard of pace, or if he's too scared to open his body up and use his pace in case he pulls up again. That penalty, when I first saw it, before they went back and replayed it, I was like, oh, how soft is that? How soft is that? And I still kind of thought it on VAR. But then my friend said to me, Brian, you know for a fact, if that had been in the other end and someone had tackled Son like that, you'd be saying that's a stonewall penalty. And it's right. It's right. you look at it as a penalty. I still think it's extremely soft. But seeing Son in that position, it was like, what are you doing there? What are you doing there? But yeah, well, we all know last season was by far his worst season in a Spurs shirt by a country mile. But we all know that that's one season out of 7 or 8 where he's been gold the others. So I think he will come back. But like I said, if Richarlison is our striker, I don't think we're going to get the best out of Son. I really don't.
No, I do agree. And when I was very, very surprised, I was actually messaging one of my friends and he was joking about, oh, well, Son's captain now, he's undroppable. And then 2 minutes later, he's been taken off. And it was like, it was such a breath of fresh air to know that there's no one in this squad which is untouchable if you're not performing well. Now, with the penalty, obviously, you know, we're saying it's soft. But for you, Ben, did you think it was clear and obvious? Because this brings in the whole VAR debate. You know, like Brian kind of said, it was a bit soft. The guy actually grabbed the opposite ankle to the one that he was kicked on. You know, little things like that. It's like, if that was 10 years ago, the referee made the on-field decision and we'd probably be like, yeah, get up, mate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I see what you mean. I think Dermot Gallagher said something about that of holding his ankle on Sky this morning. And it's a difficult one. I, like you, Brian, was saying at the time when I saw it, oh, that's soft. And even on the replay, I thought that as well. I think the problem with the clear and obvious is they quite often just throw that as a term when they get something wrong. And they overturn other things when you think, well, if they've checked that for 3 minutes and it's not clear that it's a penalty or it's not a penalty. I do think the clear and obvious term is pretty much just used as a cop-out if they get something wrong, for example. Do I think it was a penalty? It's the same thing. If it was us, I'd be screaming for it, saying, yeah, he's kicked him. There's contact. But is it soft? Definitely. But it's just what it is with the game nowadays, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And under that scrutiny, everything's in slow motion. When you see these VAR replays, it's not live, it's not real speed. And, you know, if you slow anything down, it's going to look more dramatic. Travis, Son being in that position and causing that, I think I seem to remember a couple of years ago, Son giving away a stupid penalty from tracking back somewhere. Do you think the armband and the potential to want to prove himself maybe made him overcommit in that situation, which is why he gave the penalty away?
Listen, we're talking about Heung-min Son here. He's been one of the most dedicated footballers I've ever seen in the Tottenham shirt for a very, very long time. The guy is absolute mustard, you know. And the thing with these South Koreans, they are so committed to what they do, whether that's in the army, their day-to-day life, football, whatever it is. They're such committed people. Do I think the captaincy armband's gone to his head? Absolutely not, because I don't think he's that type of guy. On the other foot, I do think he wants to prove himself because, again, he's that committed to the club. Do I think it was a penalty? Absolutely not. It was the most softest penalty I've ever seen. But we're talking about the modern day Premier League now with VAR. VAR has completely taken the game away to what football used to be like. You can't flick someone out without receiving a red card, yellow card, free kick, penalty, whatever. Sorry, going off track a bit there, but no, I think Sonny is just he's like Harry Kane. He's such a good professional that I think once we get into the league a bit more and start playing a few more games, I think he'll come out of his shell a bit more. But I think he's going to do his confidence, the world of good, obviously being injured, and everything else that he receives. So yeah, I think it's massive for Sonny. I think it's upset quite a few players, i.e. Eric Dyer. Couldn't happen to a nicer bloke, to be honest with you. As you all probably all know now, I'm not a massive fan of Eric Dyer. I know Brian knows. I can't wait to see him go and play for Scunthorpe United or something, to be honest with you.
Don't hamper Scunthorpe like that. They don't deserve Eric Dyer. Bless them.
Yeah, sorry, any Scunthorpe fans listening, but that's where he needs to be. But yeah, I've got a lot of time for Sonny, and I think he thoroughly deserves it because he's been such a committed player to the team, and you can see he's so passionate for the club, and that's what you want to see as a Tottenham fan. So many players now. I think they're better off, and I think the grass is green on the other side. And I don't think Sonny's got that mindset. So I'm glad Ange has chosen him to be the club captain. And obviously Romero being vice captain. So I would have chosen Romero as a captain because I'm a massive Romero fan. But at the same time, Sonny thoroughly deserves it.
Yeah. So obviously with this positive football, and I kind of said that it was the first time in ages I've watched Tottenham and been on the edge of my seat for the whole game, for the good and the bad. Brentford's second goal is something that I think we're going to see a lot more of this season due to this positive football. Ben, what was your take on the goal? Because obviously we were a very high line, Emerson Royale playing this new right back, centre mid, number 8, number 6, centre forward role. It kind of caught him out of position. Do you think we're going to see this a lot more this season?
Yeah, I think that's the problem. Yeah, I think that's the problem with some players. Obviously, Emerson isn't slow, but he's not as quick as the likes of Van de Ven, Udogie. So if it was on the other side, then it might not have happened potentially, because Emerson, I also think he maybe could have tried to stick a leg out to get the cross, but it's very easy to say in hindsight. But I see what you mean. On the counter-attack, we are going to face a lot of threats like that, particularly against Man United next week. I think that could be an area where they're going to target, particularly Rashford, with his electric pace. I can just imagine now, like Mourinho said a couple of years ago with Pogba, I can imagine Fernandes playing a long ball to Rashford in our right back spot, and that really being an issue for us. And I just pray that Romero isn't bad with the concussion and they don't have to have him out for the game, because I really think we're going to need him to cover that sort of space, if I'm honest.
Yeah, agreed. And Travis, for you, with the goal, obviously Mickey Van de Ven kind of got the unlucky deflection, but he kind of was in the right place at the right time, and it kind of showed that he was there, but he just didn't do the right thing. Is that a positive to take away from the goal, that he was like in the right place and he was covering well? And if that deflection went another way, we've got someone who can read the game really well.
Massively. I think that's such a big thing to take on board. He's playing in the Premier League, the best league in the world, where absolutely anything can happen. So yeah, he kept his position the whole game. As I said earlier, I don't. Apart from that, I don't think he actually put a foot out of line. So yeah, I think obviously all professional footballers learn by their mistakes. But obviously being new to the Premier League and obviously playing a different form of football, so to speak. I think he kind of knows these mistakes are going to happen, but it's what makes centre backs, left backs, right backs better, because they learn from their mistakes.
Do you kind of agree with what Ben said, Brian, about obviously we got to see Destiny, we got to see how good he was. Do you agree that goal doesn't happen if it goes down the other side?
I think the left-hand side, after a long time of needing it fixed with Udogie and Van de Ven, is locked shut. It's sorted. It's done. The one thing I will say with this is, yes, it was a defensive problem, but I think the one change I would have made in that starting lineup, if I would have been Ange, and don't get me wrong, Ange knows best, I would have swapped Skip for Sarr. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of the issues, Emerson was coming in and going into midfield, but from my understanding what he was trying to do, it was Skip's responsibility to recover the space. When Emerson had gone, it was his job to go back. Now, with that second goal, obviously Emerson's not blessed with pace, and the Brentford attacker was just skinned him alive. But what I saw again when you watched it on the replay is, as he was coming into the penalty box, the whistle literally pulled off Sanchez. So by the time the ball came, Sanchez is just standing there with his hands behind, like that, doing like Eric Dyer, and he's about 5-6 yards away from the striker. So he got his shot off. It was a bit calamitous. I'll even change that. If Romero had been on the pitch, I don't think that goal goes in, period, let alone the right side. But we are, like you said, Jay, I think we are going to get a bit exploited learning this new system. And that's why hopefully against Man U, Sarr will start there, because I think Sarr can do the defensive role better than Skip. And I think that was a big miss yesterday.
Agreed. And my favourite talking point when I go on other people's podcasts is always to talk about goalkeepers. Now, obviously, we've got a new man in the sticks. Now, Brian's taken a seat back. I can see he's got some points on this, but we're going to start with Ben. Ben, how did you think Vicario performed? First game in the Premier League. You know, a lot of foreign goalkeepers come to the league and struggle. How would you overall rate his performance in the game?
Yeah, it was an interesting one. On my match reaction, I gave him sort of a 5 out of 5, 6 out of 10 rating because I didn't think it was a weird one. I'll be honest. He had very mixed moments. He had some moments where he made like a good save and you thought that was good, or he had a good kick. But the problem is he had a lot of nervous moments as well. Particularly that one where he rushed out at their player and we were just lucky that they'd shot before he completely wiped him out. I mean, it felt like I was watching Hugo Lloris, if I'm honest. Someone that's the kicking a bit better. And sometimes he took a bit too long to kick the ball away and it like was going off for a goal kick again, where obviously it's not gone too wrong in the moment, but we could have that in another game where that goes into our net and that's a goal. So obviously he's got to get used to the Premier League and now you've got less time on the ball. But so I'll be honest, I'll give him more time and I still think he could be a good goalkeeper. And obviously we've heard great reviews from Italy. But am I like over the moon with him so far? No. But do I think he could be still good for us in the future? Yeah, I do think he could.
Travis, for you, I kind of picked up massively on his mannerisms throughout the game. He didn't look someone that was nervous. He looked someone that was taking the game so casually. You saw some of the faces he pulled and the arm expressions and all of the weird stuff that I'd never seen in a goalie in his first game before. Does that kind of show that he's confident? He's just maybe was a bit all over the place because it was his first match, or what does that show you?
I think he's probably a bit nervous and a bit confident all at the same time. I don't think there's any in between with that. But going obviously with what Ben said, there's a lot of Lloris vibes with some of the stuff that he done yesterday, and also going back a few years now. I think somebody just commented about Heredio Gomez. There's definitely quite a few of them. Mr. Spider-Man. But I think he's obviously got the chat, and obviously he knows how to confront referees when he needs to. But yeah, again, he's another player that's come from a different league. It's a different style of football. So yeah, as Ben said, just give him some time and see how it pans out. I mean, he had a good pre-season. He made some really good saves against Shakhtar Donetsk, which is quite positive to see. But yeah, we'll just, as I say, give him time and just see obviously how the season pans out. I mean, the only thing is we haven't actually got a backup goalkeeper. I know we've got Fraser Forster, which is a huge concern. Obviously, I know Fraser Forster done his bit when he needed to, but again, that's where we're missing quality. And I've said before the season even started that we are missing quality on the bench still. I think obviously I know we've had some good signings, but we are missing probably one or two more players, i.e. being a striker and a centre back.
Brian, do you think he wears the unlucky 13 at the minute, but do you think he has the potential to be Spurs' number one in the future?
Yeah, I do. But what you got to look at it with this is whoever comes in after Hugo Lloris, all right, he's been on the decline for the last couple of years. They're huge gloves to fill. Huge. For what he's done with us, World Cup winner, yada, 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 captain, blah, blah, blah. Now, I wanted David Raya. If you gave me David Raya now, I would still take David Raya. I'm not going to change from that. But obviously, when that deal fell through, and then all of a sudden we turned up with a cheaper option, the world went mad, and I was one of them. It doesn't take me long, as people know, to go on a massive Levy rant, and that was like lighting the putting petrol on the fire. But then someone said to me, Brian, listen, this is typical Spurs fans. We say we want to go down the Brighton model and find players, blah blah blah, and then when we do find one, we say, because it was cheaper. Now he's come in. The one good thing about him, or the one very good thing to start off with, which I didn't know until he signed, is his English is fluent. There's no learning, so that's massive. I had a friend of mine that went to the Shakhtar Donetsk game and said all he heard non-stop was him shouting and screaming. like dictating. So his vocal, which is another good sign. Then when you look at the pre-season
I
friendlies,
heard that.
you've got to look. He's played every single game that he's played with a different set of defenders. He's not had the same defence for one game. And then obviously, anytime he's made some good saves, but his distribution in the first half, he looked a bit nervous, and people will know that watch me on watch alongs, or if you sit near me near a game when I've been in there, when Hugo Lloris has the ball at his feet, it's like I'm having a heart attack. I am it scares the crap out of me. And he had a couple of those moments. And as Ben said, a couple of the things when he came charging out was a bit rash. And you look at it, he couldn't do anything with a penalty. I think if obviously Van der Ven hadn't got the unfortunate touch for the second goal, that was going to go straight into his arms.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't really, if you look at it, he hasn't really had a lot of saves to make in all the games. Like, he made a brilliant couple of saves at Shakhtar. I think he will come good, but I think it's this whole thing about that we wanted Raya. And then you look at it, when Arsenal got rid of Matt Turner, they went and got Raya the very same day. And then it lit it like, why haven't we acted like that? Why haven't we moved quick? I think he will become good. And we've just got to take time. People at my age will remember we had a goalkeeper that's a legend at the club now, Eric Torsfet. Now, Eric Torsfet, on his debut against Nottingham Forest, we lost the game 2-1. And Nigel Clough took a shot from the edge of the area. He caught it, and then it fell through his hands and went. And literally, it's one of the worst howlers you'll see. But he went on to become an absolutely subliminal goalkeeper for us and took us to an FA Cup. So the goalkeeper is the one position I keep saying, Jay, you've got to get it right. There's like Travis just said, if it don't work, it's back to Fraser Foster. And we're in trouble again. I believe he will become good. He just needs time. And like I said, Man U, I think he's going to get a lot more tested. He's going to get tested a lot more, shots on goal wise, and then we'll see what he does. But I think he will come good.
Speaking of the Brighton model, obviously the standout performer for a lot of people in this game, and that face says it all, Brian. I think we all feel the same. Ben, how good was Yves Bissouma?
Amazing. Absolutely brilliant. I mean, he just totally ran the show, if I'm honest. It reminded me a little bit of when we played Brighton, that game that kind of everyone talks about, that we got convinced to sign him at the back end of that season with Conte, where we got top four. I mean, everything went through him. It felt like he was never going to lose the ball, and almost every pass he made was perfect. I mean, it was just an amazing midfield performance to see. And even the couple of times he tried to venture into the box, he was dribbling in between 2, 3, 4 players, and he was just about getting through. And then maybe the final pass just about didn't work, or it just got clear because there were so many people in the way. But generally, I thought he played extremely well. And I just can't wait to see when Bentancur gets back, a midfield three of Bissouma, Bentancur and Maddison. I think that midfield with the rest of our starting team could really set the league alight and be one of the best.
I totally agree. And me personally, sometimes I think because of the performance of that midfield, bar Skippy was so good, I kind of forgot that there's still Bentancur to come back into the fold. And what a player he was for last year, really dug us out when we needed him to. So, Travis, I hate using comparisons to computer games when talking about real football, but it just felt like with Bissouma, it was like a game of FIFA. You'd tackle him and he'd still come out with the ball. It was like it was just stuck to his feet. You couldn't get it off him.
Yeah, listen, I don't know what's happened, obviously, since Andrew's come in, but, throughout pre-season, obviously, his first game, he was absolutely unbelievable. I think I was watching the highlights earlier, and one of his touches, it's like the ball almost stuck to his foot, and he just carried it through. It was... I think he's going to be a huge player for us this season. Obviously, I mirror what Ben said. Once Bentancur comes back and we play a three in that midfield, Bentancur, Bissouma and Maddison, I think it's going to completely set the world alight. I think that's going to be some formation if he can play three in the midfield. Hopefully, when Bentancur comes back, he's still going to be the same player he was before he got injured, because he was absolutely superb. And I think he's one of the best buyers we've ever had. And I've said for a long time that he's a modern day Moussa Dembele. The way he moves the ball and gets through defenders, the ball just sticks to his feet. But yeah, I think we've had quite a few managers over the years now, obviously being Poch, Conte, Mourinho, and obviously now Ange Postecoglou. They've all played different kinds of football. So I think, and I've said also for a long time, it affects how footballers play their football. I think Ange has obviously said he wants to play attacking football, and obviously Basuma is an attacking midfielder. So yeah, I am really excited for what he's going to bring to us this season. Hopefully, get a few goals as well, so that will really do his confidence a world of good.
Yeah, and like Travis said, Brian, and a lot of people have said, and we won't be the first and we won't be the last, but it's a big comparison to make. But is this the Moussa Dembele replacement we've been waiting for?
150 million%. This guy, do you know what? I don't use this word often. That guy yesterday was magnificent. There's no other word to describe it. The little touch he did at the edge of our area when he sold a player one way, that he was running forward. This guy, Travis was just saying, don't know what's happening. It's Ange Postecoglou. When he was brought under Conte was never going to fit Conte's system. And we only saw a couple of times when he came off the bench and had a real impact, like the Everton game and the Leicester game. He had a huge impact, and it was the right buy. We needed him, wrong manager. And Ange Postecoglou came in, and I think a lot of people, when we hired him, when people were saying, who do you think is going to have the biggest impact on this? And I think a lot of people straight away went for Yves Bissouma. You just have to look at it. This was against Brentford. He was the best player on the pitch in Barcelona by a mile. And again, he was. And like you said, you had Bentancur to this. And then we don't know if any other midfielders are coming in or Højbjerg staying. Højbjerg was on the bench. Like I said, I would have rather Sarr came on than Højbjerg, and I'm a fan of Højbjerg. This guy, if we keep him fit, because he can pick up the odd injury, and that you look at times right now, would I rather pay 25 million for Basuma or 105 million for Declan Rice? And I'm a huge Declan Rice fan, not so much anymore now for obvious reasons. And you look at Chelsea spending that money on Enzo, and you look at the players around, picking this guy up. This guy could literally, I think he is going to be one of the stars of the season, not just for Spurs, for the Premier League. He is that good.
Yeah.
And that game, like I said, he was absolutely magnificent.
Now, against Brentford, he was, like you said, the best player on the pitch. But we've got to talk about the game coming up against Manchester United. And Brian, I am going to stay with you for this one.
Okay.
I'm going to want to do the thing that I know some people hate doing, but I need a score prediction from you and why on how you think we'll perform against Man United.
We're going right in with the score predictions.
It's what's on the notes. It's what's on the notes.
Okay. Oh, do you know what? Oh. Can I say I think it's going to be 3-1 either way?
I'd accept that. I'd accept that. I think that's going to be 90% of our games this season, to be perfectly honest.
You're right. I think you're right.
3-1. Ben, what are you thinking on the United game?
I was going to ask Brian, is that Romero dependent? The 3-1 either way. For me,
that's another good bloody hell. I'm not ready for these good questions.
For me,
do you know what? I'm going to have belief in Ange in his home debut, and everyone going there, because I will just say on this, I don't think everyone's going, oh, how's that defence going to sort out Man U coming forward? And I was like, do you know what? For the first time in about 3 or 4 years, I don't think any team used to come and play Spurs was like, right, they're playing 3-4-3, just do this, keep Kane quiet, done. I don't think any manager and any team has a goddamn clue what we're going to do this year.
No.
So I think that counterbalances our defence. Yeah, Ben, I'm going 3-1 each way. Romero in or Romero out.
What are you thinking, Ben, on that then? Romero dependent.
Yeah, I'll be honest, it's very Romero dependent. I'll be honest, I think we'll turn up because first home game under Postecoglou, I'm going to be there. I'll be producing a matchday vlog. I know it will be a great atmosphere and the fans will be up for it. particularly with it being Man United as well, which is quite strange so early in the season to have such a big game. But without Romero, I reckon we lose 3-1. With him, I reckon maybe we could win like a 2-1 or something. And I'll be honest, my prediction for them to score is going to be a Rashford long ball over the top. But if Van de Ven, obviously Van de Ven's not that side that Rashford would typically play, but I do think if Romero and Van de Ven are there, we are going to be able to cope with it a bit more. If Sanchez plays, don't get wrong, Sanchez isn't slow and he's got good recovery pace, but the problem is what he can do with it sometimes. You think in that Man City game a couple of years ago when Gundogan twisted and turned and he ended up falling on his head on the floor, that you just always worry that something like that could happen. And I'll be honest, I'm not so worried about what we're going to do when we have the ball, because I think we could create chances against that United side. My issue is when we don't have the ball is what's going to happen. And I think that's going to be the case for most games this season. But if Sonny's back on a bit of better form, obviously he's not played much in pre-season and still recovering from that hernia, which obviously we all know is a very bad injury. I do think that we could get some joy against United, maybe in transition when they have the ball. Could Bassoon or Maddison or something hits on through the half space in the line between their right back? I think that could be a good option for us. And Richarlison, you'd like to think they might learn from the Brentford game and try and utilise him a bit better. And I think, obviously, it's only the first game. The players are still learning the system. But I think if they can reflect on the Brentford game well, see what we did well, see what didn't go so well, then I think we've got a better blueprint to beat Man United than say that was the first game. So I'm going to go with, my heart says we'll win 2-1. My head says we'll lose 3-1 and Romero won't be fit. But I'll go 2-1 to Spurs.
Travis, I'm going to give you a little bit of an advantage on everyone else. I'm going to give you some of the stats from the Man United Wolves game. Currently 0-0. Man United have only had one shot on target despite having 8 attempts. Does that play into your score prediction?
Listen, it's unpredictable with Man United. They either turn up or they don't. But I'm really excited with how the battle with the midfields are going to go. That's going to be the big thing for me to look out for between the two midfields, because I think we've got the same kind of quality with the new signings now to what United have got. So I know they've got this new striker being is it Hodgland? I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Hoyland.
Hoyland. Sorry, I'm dyslexic, so apologies in advance. But yeah, I think I'm going to go with 2-1 Tottenham. Obviously with what Ben said, I don't really want Romero to be a doubt. We need him there for them sort of games, you know. Eric Dyer can still go and live his life in wherever he decides to go on holiday. As long as he's not near that football club, I don't care. But yes, it's always a sticky one for me, Tottenham Man United, because they either play really well or we run them off the park. It's been proven in seasons before. But yeah, I'm going to go 2-1 Tottenham, and I'm really excited to see how the battle with the midfield pans out. I think it's going to be quite an excitable game.
Yeah, I'm not going to cop out and do the host thing where I don't say my prediction. So yeah, I think at home, I think seeing the performance on Sunday means that I think the fans will be behind us a lot more than maybe you would have been if it had been a poor performance at the weekend. So I am going to go bold and say also, but I'm not going to go both ways. I'm going to go 3-1 Spurs. And I'm hoping Richarlison gets a goal. Just for his confidence level at home with the atmosphere, I think that'll give him the kick on he needs. So we've just got one more question before we head on to the Twitter questions. Now, this one obviously could cause a bit of controversy, and I'm wondering whether we're all going to disagree here. So I'm going to start with Travis. Travis, if the window was to shut right now, what would you rate our transfer dealings so far?
If it was to shut right now, I'd rate it a solid 8 out of 10. I'd be absolutely fuming if it's shut right now, because we still need at least 2 more players. We need another striker, probably actually, I'll scrap that actually, another 3 players, and another goalkeeper, because I think Fraser Forster's getting on a bit now and he could hang his boots up at any point, I believe. Another defender and definitely another striker. Is that going to happen? who knows? Because I have heard through the grapevine, obviously on Twitter and other social media pages, that 100 million that we got for Kane has already been spent. Probably not spent on footballers. Probably spent on another cafe down Tottenham High Road, knowing Daniel Levy. But we move. But yeah. I think we need at least another 3 more players before the end. Just to challenge that a little bit more. I think we are going to be up there. I mean, people are saying that we're going to struggle without Harry Kane. I don't think we're going to struggle without him. It's a new era, and I think we can move forward as a club now. Rather than, I think I said in the previous podcast that I think there's always been speculation around Harry Kane leaving the club, and I think that's kind of rattled players and obviously what goes on in the changing room. So now he's gone. I think the players can think, okay, he's gone now. Let's move on. Let's make Ange happy and let's play some decent football.
Brian, what would you rate our window? Obviously, we've talked a lot about the players that have come in. Do you think the players that haven't left the club also affect that rating for you?
Big time. I'm giving it a solid 4 at the moment. And the only reason is I can understand where Travis is going, but for me, we blatantly needed 2 defenders. Listen, Ashley Phillips is going to be a superstar. I said in 2028, by 2028, he'd be Spurs captain. That's how bold I am with him. We saw yesterday, if Romero goes off or Van der Ven gets an injury or suspension, we're in trouble.
Exactly.
We've sold our striker, our star. We know Richarlison hasn't been cutting it. Son can go there, but we were questioning Son. Midfield, all right, we're here again. If Udogie gets injured, who's the replacement left back? Good old man of Ryan Weetabix, as I like to call him. We don't know what we're doing with Spence. Listen, and also, like you said, all this deadwood, all these ripping up of contracts and everything that are in that team, you're in them Belays, it's Jed Spence going, you're Davis, your Dyer, they ain't gone. They ain't gone, this bloated squad. And what I have heard, like Travis was saying, with that 100 million, I think we've already spent it. I think we have spent it on players, and they're the players that have come in. So yeah, and I'm really not impressed with it. Don't get me wrong, Maddison, brilliant signing. Udogie was last season, wasn't he? Van der Ven, I think is going to be a star. Holly will know. I speak often enough. Jan Vertonghen is my second favourite all-time Spurs player. This guy has got the Vertonghen vibe for me, and if he turns out to be half the player he is, he'll turn out to be a superstar. But yeah, I just don't think the business reflects what we should have done this summer.
Ben, for you, obviously we talked a lot about the 100 million already been spent. Now, I don't give Levy any credit. However, I would say if the Harry Kane saga was done at the beginning of the window, maybe some of the prices would have been elevated for the players that we signed. So maybe that was part of the thinking. I don't think I want to get inside his head too much. But for Ben, for you, what would you rate our window? Obviously, Holly mentioned Gift Orban. Is that something we're missing?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I think I'll go in between sort of Brian and Travis at sort of a 6 out of 10, maybe. I'll particularly agree with a lot of what Brian said, which is a lot of my point, is the outgoings for me was a lot of the issue. We heard at the end of last season that we hear every summer, Spurs are going to tear up loads of contracts. There's going to be a massive rebuild of the squad. And it never, obviously some stuff has happened, but it never happens as dramatic as it's made to sound in the media at the end of every season when we've had a bad result or something. Obviously, we had great additions, and Bissouma feels like a new signing. Obviously, he isn't a new signing. But my problem, like Brian said, if Romero or Van der Ven get injured, or both, we're back with Sanchez Dial, Sanchez Tanganga, Sanchez Davis, who are all players who I wanted out. I personally never thought it would happen, but wanted 3 centre-backs to come in the summer. Obviously, I knew that I wasn't very realistic with Spurs, but I personally believe that's what we need, because I don't think even the options we do have are really suitable for Ange's football. Dyer's not comfortable enough on the ball. He's not a good defender, full stop. And Absolutely. He's just not very quick either. Ben Davis, similar. he's a bit quicker than Dyer, but still isn't very good. Tanganga has never really seemed to hit the heights of the league. But I'd say him and Sanchez are a little bit more equipped because of their pace. But I do think there are issues that are still. There are a lot of issues that still need to be solved. And also with January and February, the African Cup of Nations is happening. So Basuma and Sarr are going to be out for a month, 2 months. So then we're a Højbjerg injury or Højbjerg leaving away from a midfield of literally Skip Bentancur and then academy players. So I think we need another midfielder, irrespective of if Højbjerg goes, if I'm brutally... Do I think that will happen? I'll be honest, I couldn't tell you. And I believe we need another number 9.
I'm hoping I wasn't the only Spurs fan who watched the game live who nearly fell to the floor when they saw Ben Davies warming up and about to come on against that Brentford speed. And I totally agree with Ben's point. If we had a centre-back partnership of Dyer and Ben Davies, I reckon Brentford could have played that ball over the top, scored the goal, ran back to the centre circle, and Dyer and Davies may have only just made it back to the 6-yard box to defend the cross. So, yeah, I definitely think that is going to be a problem for us. Right, we're just going to have some quick fire questions. Going to ask you one question each, and then I'll let you all go on and watch the second half of the United Wolves game. So, first of all, I'm going to come to you, Ben. This is a question from Barney and Chris. It's early days, but are you liking Ange Ball so far? And do you see it succeeding at Spurs?
Definitely. I'm loving watching it. It's the first time in a couple of years at Spurs that I actually am excited to watch the game. And the minute the Brentford game finished, I felt left. Something was missing. I was just wanting the next game to come around straight away. Whereas the past couple of years I've been dreading. Obviously, we still watch it because whereas now I'm just excited to watch it. And do I think it'll work? I think it can work. It depends kind of what people's definitions of work is. Because personally, I don't have much expectations this season for where we finish. I just want to see progression on the pitch, which we're starting obviously to see already. And I do think it could be quite injury dependent. If, say, for example, Van de Ven and Romero got injured, I think the results could drop off quite significantly. But the football, it's going to be very variable on the players we have available. And Basuma getting injured potentially could not be great. Because obviously Højbjerg is obviously a great player. But I don't think Højbjerg's got the technicality that players like Basuma have. But am I behind Ange? 100%, definitely. And even the way he speaks in the press conferences and interviews, he just inspires you and makes you feel positive about the club again. And I think another thing is, I was a big backer of Conte. Maybe at times I defended him a bit too much. But with Ange, I feel like he really wants to be here and he really wants to succeed at Tottenham, whereas it did feel in the past that almost we were doing a bit of a favour from how Conte has spoken in some interviews before. But I think generally Ange's maybe lack of experience in the top leagues is going to help his ambition to want to succeed with Spurs. And could we make a run in one of the cups? I hope so. I just hope we take it seriously and put out our strong 11s like we haven't in previous seasons when there's been more pressure on like the European competitions, or we have to get top 4 or you're sacked. Not always sacked, but you know what I mean? There's this amazing pressure to get top 4 from the fans as well, in fairness to managers in the past, not just the board, but obviously the financial aspect. But I think if we can target one of the cups, then I really think we have a potential chance of winning one this season. And I just hope I'm right, if I'm honest.
So do I. So do I. I think we all agree on that. Travis, I've got a question here from Callum. We've obviously kind of touched on it a little bit at the beginning, but just kind of ask you as more of a straight up. Do you think Richarlison has what it takes to be Spurs' leading striker?
Absolutely, but you still need the backup. As I said a little while ago, I'll probably get probably 6-7 games into the season yet to see obviously how he really does play and how many goals he really does get. That's the only answer I can get to that really. I think he's got it in him to to be the number one striker for the club. But it just depends, obviously, how many goals he's scoring, and obviously how many times he gets injured.
Yeah, it's the injuries for me that I'm a little bit worried about. Again, we're talking earlier about being an injury away. We're an injury away from a season without a striker, essentially. Brian, final question of the podcast. It's from Simon Photos. Now, I saw a lot of people on Twitter calling for the Ndombele resurgence this season. However, should we just cut our losses with Ndombele after Ange has said that he's not fit as the rest of the squad?
Yep. I actually see this being right now that we're going to try and get him sold. But I think just like Serge Aurier, if we don't get him sold, come the 1st of September, we're going to hear a contract being ripped up. And I think it's going to be his, because we saw the news today that he's been lacking in fitness. His attitude has dropped. He's turning up late for training. Well, it took about 5 weeks for Ange to suss him out. This guy, I keep saying, and for me to say this and put this man even in the same breath as this man is like sacrilege to me. I've seen him do things with the football that I've only seen Paul Gascoigne do. And for me to say that is, and say Ndombele and Gascoigne in the same sentence, to me is criminal. With the way that Ndombele has been acting, he's got all this talent, just none of the application. You would have thought after winning a league, all right, it didn't heavily feature for Napoli. You'd have thought he'd come back and go, do you know what? I've won the Serie A title. I've got a thirst for this. I want to. And he's come back and he's let himself down again. So I put it this way: after he did that walk off against Morecambe, I never wanted to see him in a Spurs shirt again. But if Ange had wanted him, I backed the manager, so we would have done it. Goodbye for me. I think time has come. If we don't even get a little fee for him, rip this goddamn contract up and get him out.
And I think it goes back to, like you said, about clearing out, and obviously the wage bill as well. A lot of these players are on big wages and that money could be spent elsewhere. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching today. Please make sure, if you're watching this live or if you're watching this back, to subscribe to the Scarfy Spurs Talk channel. Before we go, we've obviously got to say a massive thank you to the guests that have appeared on the channel. And where can we find you, Travis?
I'm on Twitter as TC1_1. My Instagram's the same, and you can find me on Facebook. Yeah, they're the only platforms I'm on, to be fair.
Okay. And Ben, where can we find you?
So I'm on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram as Bateman Talks Tottenham. I've launched my channel only a couple of weeks ago, and I'm providing sort of content like news updates, match day vlogs, etc. Particularly also with Man United at the weekend, where I'll be at the game. So every game I'm at, there'll be a match day vlog. And so yeah, you can find me at Bateman Talks Tottenham with my dad.
Excellent. It's nice to do it with your dad as well, I bet. Brian, where can everyone find you?
Yeah, they can find me at my channel, Tottenham on Tour. Also do a lot of work. We are Tottenham TV, obviously. But my channel that I have with a few mates of mine is Tottenham on Tour. And you might not find me inside the stadium. You'll certainly find me opposite a club shop singing two wonderful words, which leave you out. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, everyone, in the comments for watching. And obviously, hopefully, Harry's back next week and you won't have to see my face. But no, thank you so much, guys. I've very much enjoyed it and very much enjoyed your company. And thank you for watching. And we'll see you all next week.